the saxophone oracle. Hey everyone, I'm the Saxophone Oracle, and this week we're talking about slow practice. For those of you who have been following my channel for a while, and by the way, if you haven't already done so, now's the perfect time to go ahead and click subscribe. But for those of you who have been following, you know that I'm always talking about the importance of slow practice. So this week what I'd like to do is explain why I think it's so important and give you some tips so that hopefully you can start doing this effectively. Practicing slowly is something that gets drilled into our heads from day one when we start learning an instrument. But for whatever reason, so many of us don't do it. And those of us who do it, basically we don't do enough of it. And I'm guilty of this. I spent all my formative years doing my very best to avoid practicing slowly whenever I could. I just wanted to go fast all the time. The funny thing about learning is that sometimes you can have all the information you need right in front of your face. And for whatever reason, if it doesn't sink in or until it clicks with you, you can waste a lot. You can waste a lot of time. You can waste years until you have that aha moment. And when you do have that aha moment, you're like, well, what is wrong with me? I've known this all along. Why wasn't I doing it? So I want to share with you a little story about my aha moment and what I consider to be the best music lesson I've ever had. So the best music lesson I ever had, it wasn't in school, it wasn't at a private lesson, it wasn't on the bandstand. I was in my late 20s, I was already having a career as a very successful musician, but I was at a point of self-reflection. I was unhappy with my playing. There were a lot of gaps I felt I had in my playing. I was frustrated, I was feeling stagnant, and I was doing my very best to try and work on these things, but when you're working all the time, and at the time I was touring all the time, I never felt like I had enough time to address all these things the way I wanted to. One night I was on the road playing a concert in this city, and I noticed that at the local jazz club, two of my former university professors were performing. So we played our show, me and some of the guys went down to watch and listen to them play, and afterwards we're hanging out, having some drinks and chatting. And one of the numbers they played was this blistering fast bebop tune, and the trumpet player just played an incredible solo. And so I was talking with him and I was like, how do you play fast like that? Everything seemed so effortless and it was so melodic and it was just beautiful. Are you constantly shedding at up tempos? And he said, no. In fact, he said, I basically never practice playing fast. He said that he found that if you practice slowly, consistently, for long enough, then you basically don't need to practice playing fast, because when you need it at a tempo like that, it's just there for you. We continued chatting, and he went on to explain sort of how he practices, specifically how he uses the metronome when he practices. And he was sharing that it was in a very similar way when he was a younger musician. He was at a club and he started talking with this really famous bass player, and this bass player explained all this to him and how he'd been using it ever since. So whatever it was, the time and place for me in my life, I took it to heart. And I started practicing this way immediately, whether I had 30 minutes a day to practice or 3 hours a day to practice. And in a very, very short time, I started noticing all kinds of benefits. Now, I want to share this method with you because I'm hoping you'll find it as helpful and as useful as I have. I'm always talking about slow practice being important because I think it's so much deeper than just trying to develop a good technique or playing slowly to work out a difficult passage, learning how to play quickly. If you practice slowly and consistently, you'll find, I hope, that you'll get a lot more confidence in your playing overall. When you're improvising, when you're delivering your lines, you're going to do it with so much more conviction. It's going to be more convincing. And you're going to develop a deeper understanding of time feel. And no matter what it is you're practicing, it's going to get so much better ingrained than it would otherwise. You'd be developing a really good habit here. The first thing, always practice with a metronome. I made one of my earliest videos was an in-depth video about practicing with a metronome. I really encourage you to check it out. But the number one thing, always practice with a metronome. Number two, set your metronome to the lowest setting and keep it there. And when I mean lowest setting, I'm not saying 60 beats per minute, 50 beats per minute. Put it on the lowest that it goes. Most metronomes, they go to about 40 beats per minute. Mine goes to 35. I set mine at 35. It stays there. It never moves for the entire practice session, ever for that matter. Number three, start your warm-up with a quarter note at 35 beats per minute, meaning scales and arpeggios. If I only have a half an hour or 45 minutes to practice a day, then I'm going to do my scales and arpeggios at this tempo, and that's it. If I have more time, I'll go and do other things. And this is really important to start out this way, because when we go too fast, I've mentioned this in so many other videos, all kinds of things go out the window because we start thinking about our fingers. So of course, while we're doing these scales or arpeggios, we want to make sure we have a good technique. We want to make sure our fingers are relaxed, they're not leaving the pearls, all of that stuff. But we also want to make sure we're playing with a good sound, that we're supporting our air, that it's in tune, that we have consistency of tone color as we switch notes going up and down the scale. So 35 beats per minute, quarter notes, major scales, something like this. Once you've gone through all the basics, one time say all your major scales up and down, all your major arpeggios up and down. Then do them again. But this time you're going to keep the metronome at the lowest setting and you're going to feel the pulse on beats 2 and 4. So effectively you're going to be doing it at twice the speed. Again, quarter notes, but this time on 2 and 4. Then, if you want to start playing faster than that, your scales or your arpeggios, whatever technical thing you're doing, fine. But the metronome stays there on beats 2 and 4, and start playing them with a quicker subdivision, like triplets or 16th notes, for example. If you want to go faster, then quintuples, sextuples, etc. You get the idea, but the metronome stays at 35, and that's your base point. Number 4, practice improvising like this with the metronome on 2 and 4 at the lowest setting on the metronome. And this is key. And do the bulk, almost all of your improvisation practice like this, because it allows you enough time. It's slow enough that you can think ahead, formulate your idea, and execute it properly. And the key here is that you execute it exactly the way you hear it. So if you were to sing a phrase, that phrase is exactly what should be coming out of your horn. And if you make a mistake or something like that, that's fine. This is the next key thing. Stop, identify the mistake, try and understand where you went wrong, why you went wrong, figure it out exactly what it is that you meant to play, and correct it. And if you do this and are diligent about that, you're going to find that very quickly you're going to start playing exactly what you hear much more consistently with fewer errors, and it's all going to get much more ingrained. And this is going to give you so much more confidence as an improviser. You're going to play so much more convincingly and with so much more conviction if you work on doing this. And that's what the great improvisers do. Coltrane, Sonny Rollins, Joe Lovano, whoever it is, right? They're playing exactly what they want to play, and they're playing it with the utmost conviction. It's not to say that they don't flub something here or there or make mistakes, but by and large, they play exactly what they want to hear, exactly where it wants to be placed, etc. There's no questions, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And the thing about improvising musicians, what happens is we get to a certain level, and I've talked about this in other videos too about improvisation, where we get sort of good enough that we know how to sort of gloss over or fix our mistakes. We're using chromaticism or whatever it is. So we'll be playing, we'll make a mistake, and we'll just keep going on, and we kind of correct it somehow. But we never really address the reason why we make that mistakes. And then we end up being these players who use all kinds of like weird chromaticism, and it's like, it's not convincing when we're improvising. And it's because we let all this stuff go. So if we practice slowly and really identify problems and correct them, it's going to make a dramatic difference, and a dramatic difference quickly in your playing. I always talk about Sonny Stitt as the perfect example of this, as a player who has the most precise voice leading and like intention in his ideas. If you ever transcribe and analyze his solos, there's no weird chromaticism or no examples of him kind of working himself out of a weird melodic or harmonic corner, right? It's just the intention is there. So practicing this way is going to help in so many ways. Number 5, the last thing I'm going to say is it's the big question. How much should I be practicing slowly? That's what most people should be asking anyway. And my suggestion is 80%. 80%. And a lot of people are shocked when they hear me say that. They think, oh yeah, of course I should be practicing slowly a little bit until I get it. No, 80% of your time. So if you're practicing an hour a day, 48 minutes of that should be done using this method, 35 beats per minute, feeling it on 2 and 4. For the other 12 minutes, go ahead and do what you want. But I guarantee if you try this for a month and stick to it, I think you're going to notice some dramatic differences, some dramatic improvements in your playing. And if you talk to any great legendary saxophone player on the scene these days, whether it's Lovano or Mark Turner or Melissa Aldana, I'm sure they'll tell you more often than not that when they practice, if they have the time to practice, they do everything slowly. They don't even look at up tempos. It's all about practicing slowly. I'm the Saxophone Oracle. I really hope you found this week's video helpful and informative. As always, thank you so much for continuing to watch. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing. Send me a like, a comment, share these videos with your friends. The more that happens, the more it teaches YouTube how to suggest my videos so that more people can see this content that I'm working so hard to create. So thank you again. I wish you a great week. Happy practicing. We'll see you next Tuesday.